feature presentation.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series. Watson, touchdown. Hunter Renfrow. He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
The Citadel baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers. Get the ball to Bennett. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right, greetings and a good Tuesday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and driven by our friends and yours at Stokes Volkswagen. Find them at stokesvw.com. Find us on the JB and Goldwater app. You can download that. It's free. You can watch and listen to our program daily in its entirety. If you happen to miss something, go back and check us out. Always head to jbandgoldwatershow.com as well. You can follow us across all social media platforms at JB and Goldwater, individually on Twitter at SportsMediaJB and at Darren Goldwater. 843-321-8893 is our phone number. It is also our text line. It is open to all of you, and we certainly want to hear what you've got to say. Obviously, the news has made its way around the country. Oklahoma and Texas officially applying for, what do we call it, Darren? Membership.
Yep, they have formally requested an invite.
They want to be citizens of the SEC. No, so we got plenty on that, certainly. What is the follow-up to this? What is the trickle-down effect? What will happen elsewhere in other leagues across the country? What will happen in the SEC? A lot of unknowns out there, but we will continue to talk about that. We'll certainly get into some of the crazy Olympic stuff that's going on. A big story on Simone Biles, a big night for Asia Wilson and Dawn Staley. And what a performance by a 17-year-old in the pool last night. Just a tremendous accomplishment for the state of Alaska. Who the hell would think you'd want to go swimming up there? But people do, apparently, and those that wear gold certainly do, as we've come to understand it. Mike Yuva ahead at 12:30, Gene Sapakoff at 1:30. I understand that some of you are a little ticked at Gene based on the column that he had in the Posted Courier yesterday. I'll ask him about that. What did he mean? Harsh words towards South Carolina, maybe? We'll get to that, certainly. The ACC's preseason poll out. Didn't get to much of it yesterday. We will get to more of that today. Is the gap closing on Clemson? And if it is, you always have to ask that why question. Is it Clemson? Is it others? We'll see. And then the ACC has also released their preseason first-team All-ACC squad, and we'll certainly get to that as well, Darren. So it's another jam-packed day around here. Looking forward to talking to Mike Yuva, who's now spent 5 years at Watch Fox to the day. He tweeted earlier the first video of him about to go on camera, first time ever, and his laptop fell apart. So we'll certainly talk to him about that.
Oh, that's a quality story. I'd like to know exactly what happened there. We've all had those moments, like going on air and things go wrong. Like when I welcomed us in live to a basketball game, actually at the College of Charleston once, and I welcomed us in and I said, alongside Darren Goldwater, I'm Robin Mueller. Ooh. I am not Robin. I am not a female. And I am Darren, but that's how we started the show live for a basketball game. Brent Musburger later did the same thing a few years after that in a much bigger game. So it happens. But I appreciate Oklahoma and Texas. They're keeping things rolling for us. Now the question is, what next? And we have an official word from Greg Sankey as well. So we've got the ball moving here just a little bit. They've acknowledged the SEC has that Oklahoma and Texas have asked to join the league. SEC has meetings. Oklahoma and Texas Board of Regents have scheduled meetings. What's next?
I don't know. I don't know exactly what's next, but we could continue to speculate. That's for sure. The part of this statement that stood out to me, Darren, was the first sentence in the second paragraph. While the SEC has not proactively sought new members, we will pursue significant change when there is a clear consensus amongst our members that such actions will further enrich the experiences of our student athletes and lead to greater academic and athletic achievement across our campuses. The first part of that, of course, has not proactively sought new members. So, I kind of took that to believe that some of what we've been discussing since this report first broke in the Houston Chronicle last week about protecting your interests, that's kind of where I still stand with everything. If you kind of read between the lines, it's like, hey, SEC, here we are, knock, knock, knock. We'd like to come in and be a part of it. And who knows what the response was? Yes, not at this time. Let me think about I don't know what the response was initially. Maybe they absorbed it, incredibly well. I have no idea. But then the ball was back in the court of Oklahoma and Texas and saying, well, look, we know that other leagues would want us. So if you don't, here's what we're going to do. And if you're the SEC, you certainly need to put those borders up and make sure that they don't go elsewhere. And it looks like that's what's going to happen here, Darren. And, even though the reports continue to trickle out that this is going to be a 2025 ordeal, I don't believe that. I think it will be at the latest 2023, and I'm starting to lean towards probably next year.
I wonder about next year. That's the biggest question I have. Not 2025. That's not a big question in my book. It's just not going to make it that long. Realistically speaking, it's just not going to make it that long, because the reason to wait till 25 is financially driven. We've already discussed that that's not really a hurdle. There are bylaws in the Big 12, however, that say 18 months notice need to be given. If that is adhered to, 23 becomes the first possible year. There was an interesting tweet, though, from one of the guys who broke all of this, right? Kirk Bowles, who is pretty tied in. He essentially points out, okay, Oklahoma and Texas are leaving. They'll owe the Big 12 around $80 million each, in that range, unless they don't know anything if the Big 12 implodes first. I don't know how true that is, but that's how this thing goes faster. If conference realignment happens at a rapid pace right now and the Big 12 implodes, maybe this thing does happen by next year.
Yeah, and that's a great point. It looks like West Virginia may be interested in joining the ACC. I saw that Commissioner George Kliavkoff in the Pac-12, brand new commissioner, remember, said earlier that expansion opportunities for the Pac-12 are, quote, a priority, and they will be taken up in a timely manner. So does the Pac-12 maybe engage the Big 12 at a possible merger? Are they looking to cherry pick a program or two out of there and have them join? We just don't really know the answer to that question. Is the SEC done with the Big 12? Could the SEC say, well, now wait a second, West Virginia, before you go to the ACC, listen to what we have to say. I've always thought personally, Darren, that West Virginia was better suited for the SEC personally. It just has an SEC type feel to me, but West Virginia has traditional rivalries in the ACC that they lost some time ago. So, who knows where it goes. As far as the timeline, the reason that I'm starting to lean towards 2022 is because now that it's official, the lawyers are going to start getting into all of this. Not that they haven't already. They have. We get that. But you'll start to hear more snippets of information as to real details, the juice. And I'm a believer of when change is inevitable, go ahead and make it necessary. You know what I mean? So based on that, I think they'll find a way to facilitate this probably pretty quickly.
The other part of the deal that hasn't switched over yet, and we thought it would be sooner rather than later, is ESPN taking over that CBS slot. That hasn't sped up much from a timeline standpoint. That has not happened for this upcoming season yet either. So does that happen in lockstep with whatever is going to happen with realignment? My sense would be, yeah, there's no point in having this big, bad new development of a conference and saying, but the really cool part of our TV deal is going to happen next, not at the same exact time. My question too is what's next, right? The Big Ten, the Pac-12. There are plenty of rumors floating around about the Big Ten and the Pac-12. There are academic concerns with the Big Ten not wanting to give up what they hold near and dear to their hearts. I find that, and you'll hear that too from the ACC. I find it odd because what's happening now has nothing to do with academics. So if you're going to sit there and say, well, we're going to either move forward or put the brakes on expanding or sending out invitations based on academics, well, this whole thing's a farce anyway, right? Because it's not about academics, and don't try and tell me that it is. It's about athletics, period. Right. However you want to shape it, money, whatever, that's what it's about. So at this point, as a Big Ten fan, don't rest on the laurels of, this is what we stand for, and go make yourself as good as you could possibly be, because that's what you'll want in a couple of years.
I totally agree. And I even look at that more on the side of the ACC. I'm not discounting the Big Ten at all as an academic league. They're wonderful institutions. But in our neck of the woods, you hear more about this from the ACC, up there in North Carolina and other schools, certainly that, we're prestigious universities and these are our standards, this, that, and the other. That may be true, but none of this means that your university isn't going to be prestigious anymore. You still have your standards. Worry about yourself. Mm-hmm. Do you want more money or not? Do you want to stay in the game or not? So get out of here with that crap. That's ridiculous. The Virginias of the world and the North Carolinas of the world and that beat that drum of how great we are, and this league is all about academics, and the SEC is just a bunch of idiots. That's just stupid. You got to get over that quickly because TV doesn't give a crap about that, and for that matter, neither do the folks writing these checks in these league offices, and the guys who are taking these checks in these athletics departments better not care about it. I'm not saying don't care about academics,
right?
I'm just saying don't put your nose up to this type of change because you feel like one school or another doesn't fit in with whatever you believe you are from an academic standpoint. You can still be who you are. That doesn't change anything.
Yeah. Virginia, North Carolina, like you mentioned, the ACC, Michigan, Northwestern. I mean, plenty of schools up in the Big Ten also. I mean, you're still the same school, right?
Yeah, none of that changes anything for you.
All of this is happening because of athletics, because of dollars. So don't use that as a hang up, but it is going to be commonly discussed amongst all of this realignment. Is the Big Ten going to go after? Again, Patrick mentioned a possibility of North Carolina and Virginia going that way, the Pac-12 going that way. What does Notre Dame do, which holds itself pretty high from an academic viewpoint? I'll put it that way. So all of that is going to be spoken of. I just think that's got to go to the back burner right now.
Here's an interesting comment. I'm not sure if this gentleman or lady, I'm not sure who you are. BYU Big 12. If you're in our neck of the woods, that's awesome. If you're across the country, welcome into our show. We appreciate it. Where do you feel like BYU fits in all of this? I should probably be asking you that question, or we should be. Excuse me. I don't want to speak for Darren. I respect BYU. I like BYU athletically. I like what they stand for as a school. They know who they are. They know what they want to be. BYU is a really interesting program because in a lot of sports, right? Because they can always compete. Very rarely do you see a BYU program in football or basketball or the other sports, baseball, whatever you want to throw out there, mm-hmm. that I know of that just can't compete, that just aren't that good. So you wonder if BYU would be better suited with a few more bucks coming out of a league. I'm not sure exactly, what their financial situation is or anything like that. If you're asking what league does BYU fit better in, I'd probably say the Pac-12, but if the Big 12 is trying to keep themselves together, I mean, BYU is a brand.
Yeah, the Big Ten's been mentioned already before all this. I mean, Gene Sapakoff will be on with us in the second hour. He's brought up BYU as another caveat that's hanging on out there as an independent and a welcome addition to a couple of leagues as of months and months ago. And he's not the only one. That's been a good question because BYU brings value not only on the field, but in your pocketbook. Yeah. So
they have fans all over the country.
Darn right they have fans all over
because
the
of their institution.
Uh-huh.
It's just like Notre Dame. Not to interrupt you there, but it's just like Notre Dame. I mean, Notre Dame's got fans everywhere. BYU's fan base isn't Notre Dame's. I get that, but I mean, if you're the look, here's the thing. So this is going to sound really far out there. I get it, but But I mean, if you're the Big 12 and you're like, look, we're hanging on by a thread, we got to make every move we can make. You call Notre Dame. Period. You call Notre Dame.
Yeah, but you say pick up the phone.
Yeah, I would think they would have to, but I don't think you can just go down in flames without saying we did everything we could. Because I mean, maybe the other 8 institutions are trying to get out, which I'm sure West Virginia appears to be. I'm sure Oklahoma State is. Hell, if I'm Oklahoma State, I'm calling Greg Sankey going, hey, don't forget about us, man. We're right here, by the way. We got a nice market up here. But if you're the Big 12 and you're like, everybody hold on, let me see how we can salvage this thing, you got to call Notre Dame first because they're not part of a league. I get it. The rest of them are. The rest of their athletics programs are all in the ACC. I get that. But if you're about to take in $160 million from Texas and Oklahoma to buy themselves out of a contract, I'd say, okay, well, we'll pay you out of the ACC to X amount. Notre Dame's got the rest of the cash. They can probably handle it. And here's what we can do. And then where do you go from there? Is it BYU? And then you maybe try to add a G5 program like a Cincinnati. I mean, I think you could probably make some noise in the Big 12 by doing something like that. But I mean, Darren, you and I are sitting here literally playing a video game with this. I mean, it's not that easy, but we're in this whole idea phase of what is college athletics going to look like, and I'm throwing them out there like anybody else is.
You have no idea. Here's why I think the Big 12 is, I'm not going to say dead. It's on life support. It is on multiple machines worth of life support because around the country, the Big 12 is seen as almost getting surprised by this whole move. The Big 12 has been Texas, Oklahoma. That's the Big 12. And who else is in that conference? They don't have that anymore. When they were exploring the idea of adding schools years ago, they were adding schools to a conference led by Texas and Oklahoma. They don't have that anymore. The Big 12 is in major trouble. If I am any type of institution right now with a chance at being a power player in college football, I don't even listen to the Big 12. Not until the Big 12 can prove that they're going to be at that table. Because right now, you can't convince me at all that the Big 12 is going to be at that table when all of this dust settles. Not the way it looks. Yeah. It might merge with a different league, and maybe that renews its seat. But the way it looks now, the way it's trending now, you can't tell me the Big 12 is at that big boy table. If I'm Notre Dame, I don't even pick up that phone. If I am BYU, I don't make that call right now. I do call the Pac-12. I do call the Big 10. If I'm anybody in the Big 12, I'm making those same phone calls right now too.
Yeah, I mentioned George Kliavkoff. You mentioned the Pac-12. He also earlier said, quote, this is kind of a strange comment, but he said, quote, we believe the move by Texas and Oklahoma strengthens our unique position as the only Power 5 conference with teams in the Mountain and Pacific time zones. So kind of, I don't want to read too much into this, but the Pac-12, Darren, as we all know, and we've kind of laughed at them on the East Coast for a while in football, They've had an identity crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Oregon, I'd say Oregon for the most part has been the flag bearer of that league. And then Washington has had their years, but we've all kind of waited on Southern Cal to kind of become Southern Cal again. I would venture a guess. Everybody probably agree on that. And, Colorado, they added Colorado. That hasn't really added anything to the league from a strength of the league standpoint. So, you almost wonder if the Pac-12, based on that comment by George Kliavkoff, is saying, look, we're the only league out here. We have this enormous the population base out here with our TV contracts is pretty big too, boys and girls. Come on.
Yeah.
Because there's no, Darren, like we're so over I know it mattered this past year in COVID, but like we're so past the days of, well, that's a 5-hour plane trip. I mean, West Virginia's in the Big 12.
Dude, the Sun Belt Conference expands up and down the East Coast and then through Texas.
Like none of that matters anymore. I mean, it matters in the SEC amongst the power leagues and then parts of the ACC more than any, because the ACC has so many schools in North Carolina, Virginia, and of course Clemson. And then the SEC, its base group of schools, including South Carolina more than Arkansas, since the Gamecocks were added in 92, there is like a travel area of you can pretty much get wherever you need to go within about 6, 7, maybe 8 hours sometimes, but you can do it. But the rest of the country, it doesn't matter anymore. So if it's all about the money and the TV and this, that, and the other, maybe George Kliavkoff saying, look, we own the whole western half of the country's market. Y'all come be a part of what we've got to sell, and this is how we can kind of counter some of this.
To me, Kliavkoff is high on the list of most interesting and worthwhile to follow as this whole thing goes along, because we don't know much about him. We know his background. And to me, his background plays very well into something like this. Number one, it catches you somewhat off guard and you're thinking on your feet. And he's got a marketing and entertainment and television and Vegas, that type of a background.
Yeah.
So number one, you're thinking on your feet. Number two, you've got the contacts both in the television and the entertainment world. And number three, just personality-wise, who is this guy? We know he is well-liked. We know he's a guy who, by all accounts, is someone who comes into a room and can fit in amongst wherever he is. That's the word. But from a personality standpoint, is he an aggressor? What's his long-term vision of the Pac-12, and how quickly can he get this ball moving? It's possible that the Pac-12 got the right commissioner at the exact right time because the last guy was such an utter failure that it just happened to work out this way. Or it's possible that a brand new guy in this position is overwhelmed by the situation.
Very possible. I correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't the Pac-12 trying to shift a lot of their championships, maybe even their headquarters to Vegas?
That was discussed. I'm not sure it's happening. I believe they're staying in San Francisco
for now, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to Vegas. I think the initial thought was, all right, if Kliavkoff is the commissioner and he's in Vegas, are we shifting to Vegas, and does it make sense? There are a lot of reasons you could say it does make sense, but they're primarily west of Vegas.
Well, wouldn't it make a little more sense if you added all these teams to the east of Vegas?
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? Like
the Mountain West Conference?
Yeah. I mean, it would just make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
And you could kind of see where this thing is going if that was ever. I think that as big of a deal as this is, Oklahoma and Texas, I think what's to follow is going to be similarly, if not even bigger of a deal. I'm talking about probably a conference merger somewhere, Darren. Or, I mean, if you ask me today, all right, rank them most likely to least likely? The Big 12, or what's left of it, merges. The Big 12 adds teams and continues on, or the Big 12 dissolves and all of those programs go elsewhere. My feeling is more along the lines of merge. That's what I feel most confident in. Second would be teams going elsewhere. And then third would be them adding to try to maintain the Big 12.
I think what happens next dwarfs the size of Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC, because this started it all, right? So this is a big deal. It's a very big deal. It strengthens the already strongest conference. It's a big deal. But this doesn't completely change the landscape like the reaction to this, I think, probably will. If the Big Ten reacts and they go add, and now you're chasing a 16-team conference, maybe a bigger conference than that when the SEC is all said and done. Once all of these pieces move, however many all of them are, and once this imaginary, at this point, super division is created between 40, 50, 60, however many schools, that's the bigger impact than what starts it, right? The end game is the thing that people will talk about moving forward. Like the day college football totally changed, yeah, Texas and Oklahoma starting this process. But when it actually looked completely different, it's when all the dust settles, and now we got a whole new game here.
I know. You're right. Adam's comment here is an interesting comment. West Coast might have the population markets, but college football isn't as big of a deal as it is in the South. That's clearly true. Mm-hmm. No, there's no question. But college football is not a big deal at Rutgers or in New Jersey. It's just not. And the Big Ten added Rutgers because of the TV market. You know, it's. I mean, Darren, you and I have been doing this a long time. You know, probably combined 20 years or so between you and I, if not more than that. We know how it works, right? You know, you sell the eyeballs, or you sell the audience, or the gen pop, however you want to word it, and that's where your revenue comes from, and that's where you get your ratings from. So while he's right, you're right about that, Adam. It doesn't mean that they can't adjust marketing tactics to whatever population is there. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, it's hard to adjust to the eyeballs or to convince them to pay attention. I mean, that they're the major cities by and large. They're professional cities. DC, right? The Terps bring the DC market, but DC doesn't care about the Terps. I grew up in DC. I did not grow up a college fan, period. I didn't become a fan of college athletics until I got on campus at Penn State. That's when it really started mattering to me, because I was in a professional market. It's the same in New York, even though New York has fans of everybody because they all just move there. And it's the same in a lot of these major markets. That is something that the Pac-12 has consistently struggled with. And I'm not sure they can fix it necessarily, but they need to do something to not fall further behind when all this happens.
Yes, they could a merger, if that was to ever to come to fruition with the Big 12, would fix that. Would fix a lot of it. I mean, you look in the Big 12 and what is left, and you have, we love our football and we love our college athletics here in the South, but I can assure you they love it like that up in Stillwater, Oklahoma too. You know, it might not be Athens, Georgia, or Tennessee, or Knoxville, or Columbia, South Carolina, or whatever, but TCU, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, West Virginia. You know, of course, here's the thing with that, though, right? West Virginia is not joining the Pac-12. So, but they're part of the Big 12. So if there was a merger, I'm 99.9% it would not be a total merger of what's left in the league. It would be, here's what we're going to do. Here's how this is going to work. Anybody want out of this? We do. And then West Virginia, you're free to go do whatever you want to do. But those other guys, you know, you got to remember, like, if the Pac-12 and the Big 12 merge, I know we got to get going here, but TCU and Texas Tech and Baylor are in the state of Texas. Mm-hmm. They're not Texas A&M. They're not Texas. No, I get that, but they're still in Texas, and there's still a Texas market there, and the Pac-12 kind of embracing some of that would be very helpful to them. It'd be very helpful. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where it's going, but it's wow. I just can't believe we're sitting here talking about this. Unbelievable.
I want the Big Ten and the Pac-12. That's what I want. If I have my say right now, I want the Big Ten to poach half of the Pac-12. Whatever's left of the Pac-12 can figure it out with whatever's left of the Big 12 after some additional movement in the Big 12. Figure that part out. And then you're going to have these super conferences of the SEC, the Big Ten, and then whatever the ACC decides to do. Notre Dame is a big caveat here. If someone can finally wheel that cow in.
Somebody's going to try to.
Everyone's going to try to.
Yeah,
they should.
Should the SEC consider Notre Dame as well? Well, of course they should, but they're not going to get them. Notre Dame, that I don't see that happening. Not Notre Dame. They're not get they schedule every year tough. Don't get me wrong. They're not going to look and see, oh, okay, Alabama, Texas, Georgia, Florida, Oklahoma. Yeah, we feel like running through that every year. Nope, they're not going to do it. If anything, they'll just join the ACC. Maybe they're lured into the Big Ten or something like that, or maybe they say, I don't care what y'all do. We're Notre Dame. We're going to stay right here, and our TV contract in the future with NBC will dictate what we do next. One more quick point from Adam as well. I like what you're doing here today, my friend. Don't see the same type of TV contracts for the Pac-12, and if this is all about money, the Pac-12 is still trying to figure it out. True. Let's remember, Fox has contracts with the Big 12 and with the Pac-12. So that big noon kickoff thing makes a little bit more sense when you got the Big 12 doing it, as opposed to the Pac-12ers out there trying to play at 9 o'clock in the morning. That's
but the dollars aren't the same.
No, they're not. I mean, could they change? Yeah, of course they could. They probably would. But that might actually hurt them because that merger would not have Texas and Oklahoma. So, or West Virginia. Who knows? Who knows, Darren? I don't know. Nope. All I know is it's been raining outside all day. That's all I know. I do know this also. Mike Yuva will join us next. Today, 5 years for him at Watch Fox. Got a bunch to get into with old Mikey right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road with exciting news. It's springtime and we're playing ball. Most dealerships don't have any inventory, but at Stokes Volkswagen we do. So we're playing ball on every new Volkswagen in stock. Every new Volkswagen available with zero down. Qualified buyers can sign and drive with interest-free financing for 60 months. Remember, Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road is the fastest, easiest way to sell your car and get the most money for your trade. Plus, we'll take any trade in any condition, paid off or not. Is your credit in a slump?
Strike two.
If you've got $500 down and you make at least $2,000 per month, our lenders can get you approved. So if you want to strike out, that's okay. But if you want to hit a home run and save on a new Volkswagen, come to us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road or StokesVW.com.
$1,666 per month per $1,000 borrowed for 60 months at 0% APR with zero down. Plus tax tag. Includes $499.50 administration fee. Subject to VCI credit approval. Expires month end.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
Shrimping season's back. That means local caught shrimp. That's right, local caught shrimp back on the menu at the Dog and Duck. All three locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road, now featuring once again local caught hand-breaded shrimp, plus other daily specials like the Game Day Burger every Wednesday, Rib Night on Friday, rotating taps all the time, and all the TVs you can possibly imagine for whatever you want to watch. The Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road.
You are listening to the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online.
$12:35. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen on a rainy Tuesday afternoon here in the low country of South Carolina. JB, Darren, and Yuva. 5 years, and you're only 15. So a third of your life you have spent broadcasting at Watch Fox in the capital city of South Carolina. Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you. As you mentioned, 15. So Brian Glenn and all the other establishments where I've had some drinks, they've been giving an underage kid drinks for years. So we appreciate it.
That's right.
I should be joking because Dick Harpoon will cut this and probably use this, in against 5-point bars and stuff. So I'm just kidding, Richard.
Yeah, I'm not. That guy, he's got to find something else to do.
I can't say anything. I'm sure I'll get yelled.
I can say whatever I want to.
Even though I cover sports, I'll get yelled at somehow if I make a statement.
Looks like you will.
This guy he's something. He is something. I don't know about you, Mike, but I'd venture a guess when you moved to Columbia, you knew that 5 points was there before you were, right?
I'll tell you what, I had no idea about 5 points. I had no idea about the Vista. I had no idea what bless your heart meant. I will say this, and I've said this for years. If it wasn't for Corey Miller, I wouldn't be in Columbia. I met Corey at the Medal of Honor Bowl when I was still a senior in college. I was with this old this old high school coach of mine who's an NFL agent now. And he had some guys down there, and we had a teammate of mine that was playing in that game. And I ended up holding a camera for Corey. A year later, I'm in Mississippi, working in the middle of nowhere. And Corey's one of the celebrities that's playing in the tournament. A year later, because after we ran into each other, a year later, that exact day that all the celebrities arrived in Greenville, Mississippi, the opening for the weekend job at Watch Fox got posted, and people that Corey has known forever. You have Jim McMahon, you have Grant Fuhr, you have all these great celebrities going up to Corey saying, give Mike a shot. And
5 years and he can't get his internet to work.
Oh, he's got it. He's got it.
I'll say this, though, to wrap up your Corey Miller story. Corey was one of the first analysts that I had doing SoCon games. I don't remember how many years into it, but Corey and I spent 2 years traveling doing some SoCon football together, too. So we have that in common and our Yankee blood.
I feel like everybody has, as Mike is attempting to, either he's a hell of a statue or he's attempting to get that feedback there. I feel like everybody has some type of Corey Miller story. You know what I mean? There he is. There's Mikey.
I'm on the
Mike.
phone. I don't know what's going on with my computer. I think it's kind of run its course. But yeah, Corey, if it wasn't for Corey, I wouldn't be here. So very, very fortunate. And I think my very first day, he brought me down, showed me where the Vista and 5 points were. So it seems like it was just yesterday.
Darren was telling his Corey Miller story. My quick Corey Miller story was this was what year is this? 2021, right?
Currently, yes.
So I think it was the 2019 or maybe 2017. It was 2017. Clemson, Carolina. So Patrick Davis does a Toys for Tots Friday night show every year before Clemson and Carolina play. And he's done it at the Music Farm. Is it still called the Music Farm? I don't even know.
Senate now. It's called the Senate.
The Senate, that's right.
Yep.
In Columbia, right there next to Tin Roof. And I've been a guest of Patrick's at this literally every year. And so a few years ago, we were up in the little VIP area thing that Patrick kind of put this little, I don't know, just a little area. And I'm just standing there. I had a drink in my hand, and I'm just standing there watching Patrick and his dad and the rest of the choir play their music, and somebody puts their arm around me, just being funny, kind of choking you out, except it was Corey. And I had, at the time, my chin was up, so he caught me, and I couldn't really breathe. And I'm tapping on him going, nah, dude, I couldn't even say it. I couldn't breathe. I can't breathe. And he's just laughing and carrying on, and Brian Brewer, all these guys are standing around. Anyways, he finally let go, and I was able to I survived. But I had to let him know that, dude, when you're that big, you got to make sure that people are aware that you're about to choke them out.
You don't kill people.
Yeah, like I thought that was it. But I didn't spill my bourbon, so that was good.
Man, that's a pro's pro right there.
Yeah, a lot of training there. A lot of training. All right, Mike. Well, so to celebrate 5 years, we'll send you on a trip wherever you want to go. Norman or Austin? Which one?
Oh.
Have you talked to Shane about
Austin? Austin.
Yeah.
I got to go to Austin. I go to Austin. I mean, I have buddies that are down in Austin. I feel like it's a place that I'd really enjoy. I don't know if I'd want to live there, but I think I could go and have some good fun over there. Norman, I'm sure, if Beamer was on the airwaves, he'd be able to make a good pitch. But yeah, Austin just sounds so much more fun for numerous reasons.
Austin's one of the places, really one of the few in this country that is still just on my bucket list of how awesome it is, and I have not been to Austin.
I haven't either.
Yep.
I've got a friend that I grew up with who's a little older than I am. He played football at Wando, went to Texas, and walked on. He was a walk-on the Vince Young National Championship team. And he goes back here and there. He's living here now, but Matt tells me often, he's like, dude, it is a really, really, really cool place. So, and Norman's more like a college town, from what I understand.
See, I would think that Austin would be a huge college town, though.
It's more of a city, apparently. I've heard it combined as like it's Charleston, Asheville, and then I don't know,
it's got like the college area.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like with Columbia. It's got its 5 points in Vista, but it's not just a bar area. It's like its own little like section, like you mentioned. Like, it's got the Charleston. Okay. Yeah, I see that.
I think, and Craig's commenting here. Maybe Craig's been there. So comment. Tell me if I'm wrong. I think, because I've been almost everywhere in the FCC. I think it's like if you could pick up Athens and just put it right in the middle of the city. So you've got the city, but then you also have Athens right there in the middle of the city. You've been to Athens, right?
Pretty awesome.
There's so many cities that I haven't been to. This is how pathetic this is. 2 years ago when USC played Georgia, I had a speaking engagement back home. So I'm thinking to myself, all right, Mitch, our other sports guy, who, by the way, he'll be leaving at the end of the week. And I just want to congratulate him on a tremendous run at Watch Fox. He was a tremendous person to work with. And, he doesn't necessarily know what's next for him, or at least he hasn't told us publicly, but wishing him nothing but the best. So he went to Athens for that game when Georgia was number 3 and USC didn't have a shot in the world. And I had a speaking engagement in Massachusetts, and I'm up on stage, and I'm trying to make jokes. No one's laughing, of course. That's the worst thing about these speaking engagements. They tell you, oh, make some jokes. No one's there to hear you make jokes. So I made a joke saying, if I wasn't here today, I'd probably be in Georgia to watch South Carolina, but there's no shot in hell they're going to win today. And, of course, South Carolina pulls off the upset against the Bulldogs. So that would have been my only opportunity to go, and that would have been a great time. But I've never been to Athens. There's a lot of SEC cities I haven't been to. I've been to Oxford. I've been to Starkville because of my Mississippi days. But other than that, I don't think I've drove by Gainesville. I did the Tebow pose in front of Tebow's statue, maybe like in 2011 or 12. So that would have made me 8 years old based off of what you were telling me. I've been here for 5 years. So I have so many more SEC cities to explore, but Athens is definitely up there, and maybe the future Texas Longhorns of the SEC. I'll have to check out Austin.
That's where we've everybody's having this discussion of everything, which way you can have these discussions of are we done with expansion? What other teams are we adding? And this, that, and the other. What's the future of the sport look like? Where are these other teams going? Those are all the serious parts. The fun parts for me are something that I've been clamoring for a while, and Darren knows this very well. Add more road trips to the schedule now. And if they're going to change the scheduling around to where what they should do, add a 9th game into the SEC and get them rotating more and more, I think that fans will start doing what they really used to do before all the TV and technology. And that's, hey, let's take a road trip this weekend. Let's go watch them play wherever. So, now we're going to have to come out with new rankings as to the best visits in the SEC. Have you been to Nashville?
Mm-hmm. I'm slacking so much. I've never been.
You're a loser.
You got
by the way,
Nashville.
Not to get too far off topic here, but how do you feel about this DJ Uiagalelei Bojangles thing?
I think it's great for him. I mean, I that's the best part. I've had Gamecock fans tweet at me. How do you feel about this? I've said this before. I have no dog in the fight. I want to see all the local teams do well. I cover the Gamecocks, I feel, a bit more than I cover Clemson. With that being said, we need to get a Gamecock on board. We need to get a Gamecock part of Bojangles. So, as I sit here with my Bojangles trophy in the background, I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't say we need one here in Columbia, because Columbia helped me get that trophy there. So we need a Gamecock on board. But in all seriousness, I think it's good. I think it's good that, I think it's him and Sam Howell, quarterback at UNC. I think it's good that kids are just being able to make some money right now. I think it's going to turn into the wild, wild west, and that's a story for another day. But why the hell am I going to knock a kid being able to make some money? I mean, shoot, I wish I had a Bojangles deal when I was in college, and I didn't even know what Bojangles was back then.
Popeyes. You could have had a Popeyes deal.
Oh, could have done Popeyes.
So what are you going to do when there's a big banner, a big billboard of him on the side of, I-85 in Greenville eating a Yuva?
I'm going to say that's my guy right there. Then all Gamecock fans are going to get pissed off and call me a sellout. The funniest part about all that is there are people tweeting at me saying I'm not going to eat at Bojangles now. I'm like, what the hell do you want me to do? I mean, I have no say in this. You think I have any say? You think I'm at the board meetings each week at Bojangles? Hey, Mike, who do you think we should sponsor this week or this year?
Who should
give two rats asses about what I think?
They should. Who should they? They got to sign somebody from South Carolina. Who do they sign?
I said this, and the problem is this, and this is going to come across as a slight, but I think you're trying to find someone that has a name that you could, be able to get behind. Now, I think, a guy like
JJ and Agbury,
Inabari could be the guy. The problem is how many people outside of this area really know him.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. By the end of the year, everyone's going to know him. I mean, JC Horn, if it wasn't for his dad outside of the SEC, how many people would know him because no one was throwing the ball at him? Statistically, people didn't know who he was because people were afraid to throw the ball at him. People in Columbia knew who he was because he was that darn good. And it didn't surprise anybody when he was getting the attention that he got leading up to the draft and that he was the number one guy selected because we heard so much about the kid from Alabama, Patrick Sutherland. We heard so much about him. Why didn't we hear much about JC Horn? Because people didn't know about Horn other than his dad going into his junior year, because I know he left a year earlier. So I don't know. I mean, I would say this, though. I have to lean towards oh my goodness, this is what happens when you get old here. My birthday's coming up and getting older here. I'd have to lean towards one of the guys on special teams for South Carolina.
Parker White.
The whole special teams unit were some of the first Gamecocks to get the Yuba. So that's the way I need to lean.
So Parker
White.
Yeah. The pride of Wando, baby.
And instead of kicking into whatever's on the net now, there can be a big old Bojangles Yuva thing that you're kicking into.
Oh, that'd be terrific. That'd be awesome.
I'm here for the ideas.
Yeah.
Darren's a marketing whiz over here.
If the Bojangles boys are watching us, they're making a lot of money off of what we're saying. Maybe they should support our program. Yeah, that's you know what though? I want to go back to something you said a minute ago. I think you're wrong. I think you're right and you're wrong. I think you're right.
Wouldn't it be the first time I'm wrong?
Me neither. According to some people, I'm wrong every day. I think you're right about the JC Horn. Nobody knew who he was because nobody threw to him. That's true. We've talked about that a bunch around here. That's very true. But Carolina, I'm just going to say it. Most of these national people, they don't give a damn about South Carolina unless they're good. They don't care. I mean,
they don't care about anyone unless they're good for the most part, except for major brands.
That's right. That's what I'm getting at. Like, let me ask you, like, is Kevin Harris getting the love that he should be getting right now? Mike, he's at best second team on all these lists out there. The dude led the SEC in rushing last year. Mm-hmm. If he was playing for A&M, if he was playing for Georgia, if he was playing for Florida, name it, he'd be first teamer this year, but he's not because he's in South Carolina. I'm fully convinced of that.
When I first got here, I kept hearing that, and I just thought you guys are a bunch of babies. But now that I've been here for 5 years, I see it.
I don't disagree with what you're saying because there are a bunch of.
I see it though, and
that's the perfect example.
And JC Horn brought it up, and I think JC's a good person to use as an example because the guy was drafted number one, and it didn't hurt his draft stock, even though he had to do so much to get to that point. But he's like, unless you're playing for a winning team, people don't talk about you. They just don't care the same way. And I think with South Carolina, because they've kind of been, outside of that Spurrier era, they've kind of either been in purgatory. That's what I like to call it, SEC purgatory, in that middle of the bunch. People just do not talk about them. And because of that, I feel like, unfortunately, for a lot of these players, and we've seen it too with the rankings, which I think is just bananas, right? I thought that was just kind of like an old tale, right? Like, there's no way this is true. You saw it. There's players that are 4 stars or what, and as soon as they commit to South Carolina, what happens? They drop, and I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, what? I always thought that was just a load of crap, and Gamecock fans were just crying for the sake of crying. Nope, you guys are right. You guys are right.
Well, I think it's somewhere in the middle of that, because there are a bunch of babies in this fan base, like everyone.
Oh, just like every fan
like
base.
every
No
fan
question.
base. It makes sense that 2 guys who could be Heisman Trophy candidates throughout the year have deals with Bojangles, and nobody on Carolina's team does, because they're not going to get the exposure.
Yep, absolutely. And those are 2 guys that, I mean, how could be the first quarterback drafted next year, if not one of the top 3, if not 2, depending on how this season plays out. And DJ Uiagalelei, I had an opportunity to speak with Taj Boyd, probably the Boston College game. I think we were sending texts back and forth, and he said, this guy's going to be special. The last time that he said a guy was going to be special was a guy named Deshaun Watson, and his career turned out pretty good at Clemson. So, I'm looking forward to seeing what DJ can do, because you're coming in, and I mean, shoot, you can even throw Kelly Bryant in the mix for that one season when he led them to the ACC championship.
Yeah.
You're coming in. You have a long list of very successful quarterbacks that have played in front of you. And I know Gamecock fans, as much as they don't like making any type of comparisons to Clemson, they would give anything. They'd give their left arm to be able to have the factory in terms of, all right, this guy's gone, next guy up, and to be able to build and be able to have a guy ready, because that's what they've been able to do. So, DJ's in that mix, and because of the pedigree that Clemson quarterbacks have had over the last couple of years, and because of what he was able to do in the limited action he had last year, it's a no-brainer for Bojangles.
I don't even know how we got back on that, but I agree with you. I would say, Mike, I've been sick the last 2 days.
Oh, me too. I'm going to doctor's care after this. I'm all congested right now.
Yeah, I've had it sucks.
Fine.
So, you, Darren.
Yeah, I'm good.
Thanks, man. Cool.
Yeah, no problem.
Cool story, Hansel. Yeah, but I guess, all right, so the Bojangles part is still part of this, but to kind of tie this back in here. So DJ Uiagalelei, we know he's talented.
Yep.
And he started one game last year, and he was really good at Notre Dame. That's not why they lost that game. They couldn't stop him on defense. 2 games. Yeah, they started 2. That was his first start, was Notre Dame.
Yep.
But he doesn't, he's not coming into the season with 15 starts or 10 starts or anything like that under his belt. Mm-hmm. But now they've established that at Clemson at they're winning, number 1, and number 2, certain position groups have just continued to prove that, hey, this quarterbacks here are really good. Wide receivers here are really good. And so you get this preseason recognition. I'm not saying that it's not based on what we saw him do on the field, because certainly a lot of that is. But even if he didn't throw for 400 yards against Notre Dame, there would still be he's probably my second or third team quarterback this year, because he's the quarterback at Clemson and he must be good. That's not happening at South Carolina. You led the league in rushing, and you can't even get on the first team the following year. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what else is fascinating real quick. These preseason lists are coming out. Gamecock's getting a lot of names out there. Jordan Strawn is on the list. JJ Nibari, he's on a new list. I saw today he's on the Bronco Nagurski list. You know whose names aren't on any lists, and they're the 2 guys that I'm watching the most? Zach Pickens and Jordan Birch. They're the 2 guys that I am most anticipating watching those 2 guys play football this year, because I don't think they can't win 5 games without those 2 guys. They can't do it. They have to be good.
And the word out of South Carolina coming back to the beginning of last season was Pickens, for him, it was just taking him some time to be able to pick up the playbook. And that's not a surprise. When you have that type of size and you're going up against high school kids and you're really able to dominate, you don't have to necessarily know every fit. And I'm not saying the guy's a bonehead. That's not what I'm saying. But sometimes when you have that size, you don't have to know anything else really, except for just get to the quarterback. And you can just do, your power move. You don't have to do a finesse move all the time, or mix it in even into into your pass rush. So I think more than anything, being able to learn the system the last 2 years, and yes, things are changing up. You have a different coaching staff, but at the end of the day, you understand the speed, and you understand too. Yes, I'm a big guy, but at the same time too, the stuff that worked in high school for me isn't necessarily going to work in college. But if I can be able to find out different ways and just continue to learn the game from a collegiate level, I have the power. I have the speed to still be very good at this level. So I think being able to have those 2 years under his belt is going to be a tremendous improvement for him to show that he's made those strides. As far as Birch goes, I mean, the guy was making progress last year, especially towards the end of the year when they were using some of the younger guys to be able to build for the future. I expect him to come right away, and I think he's going to make a difference. And, oh, by the way, if we look over the last couple of years, we talked about Clemson and how they've been able to make a factory out of quarterbacks these last couple of years. Look at the factory that South Carolina has been able to make on the defensive line. I mean, it is absolutely scary. We talk about in the past, tight end U or defensive back U. I mean, this has been defensive line U over the last couple of years. And I would not be shocked, obviously Mbari going to the draft next year, but some of these guys that we're discussing right now, if they're the next ones up in the coming years, and we're talking about them potentially being first-round draft picks.
20 plus years at that position. I mean, I go back to John Abraham, and then guys like Kalimba Edwards, who's kind of played linebacker, but he also played a little defensive end, and then you just keep turning the pages. Cliff Matthews and obviously Clowney and Ingram and those guys came through, and Devin Taylor, and I'm missing somebody. Clifton Gathers from beautiful Carver's Bay, South Carolina. I mean, there's just a lot of guys. I mean, Chaz said all these guys went to the league. They've produced a lot of dudes over the years.
Corey Miller. Corey played between D end and and linebacker as well. Another guy that played in the league for 9 years.
Yeah, I mean they've had these guys. I would. Somebody asked me the other day, who are you? Give me 3 guys on defense and 3 guys on offense that you expect to have breakout years. Jordan Birch is numero uno for me. I mean, he's ready. He's ready. Has anybody seen him lately? Have you seen a photo of him, Mike?
Yeah, he was actually down in 5 points the other night. I walked by him. He's a very big boy.
He is large.
I'm sure he was just getting some groceries. So
I think he was. The Piggly Wiggly is down.
Oh, he can do whatever he wants. The point being is, he's looking good. He's looking very good, though.
I don't think we realized. You never realize it until they change their body types. I'm talking about any college athlete, all of them. Matter of fact, one I can think of right off the rip is a guy that played Penn State, Courtney Brown, who's from around here. First time I ever saw him, and then when he actually went to Penn State, you're like, that's Courtney Brown.
I had some classes with Courtney. He was not small.
No. I mean, the guy was built like literally a cinder block. Jordan Birch, I don't think we realized how much baby fat he still had on him.
Yeah, so and I think back to just a couple of years ago, covering a practice at Hammond his senior year, and just looking at him and saying, he's a big boy, and that's the thing you learn. I mean, having the opportunity to play, even though it's Division II, playing Division II football, when they bring you in and they're evaluating you, they can tell instantly. They're like, we could throw 10 pounds on your legs. I mean, that's usually the first when you're coming out of high school. A majority of these guys, you could throw 10 pounds of muscle right in your legs. But you look at a guy like that, he had the baby fat on him. It's not like he wasn't, being trained properly at Hammond. I mean, if anyone's going to be able to get guys ready, it's going to be a guy like Kimry.
He was 18.
But that's the thing. He was a boy. Yep. And, even though I think that's the thing we get caught up with sometimes. You look at how big some of these guys are, and you just think, wow, they're still only 18, 17 years old when they're coming out of high school. So the fact that you were able to get into a lifting program consistently, because I don't care what high school you play for in the country, unless it's maybe was it IMG Academy, unless it's one of those schools, the lifting is just not going to be the same. It just won't be compared to the collegiate level. So to be able to do it day in and day out, do it all summer, I mean, this guy looks like an absolute tank right now.
Dude, he's the real deal. I've said this often over the last couple of weeks, Mike. Here's a little nugget for you moving forward for your late night arguments at the Village Idiot. Based on the 24/7 Sports all-time composite, 2 of the top 4 all-time commitments to South Carolina are currently on campus at the same time. in the same unit. Zach Pickens and Jordan Birch. Jordan Birch, the second highest rated recruit ever for South Carolina, and Zach Pickens the fourth. So, for all the bitching and moaning that people have done about Muschamp over the years, he didn't come in and try to tear the program down. He did some really good things. He just didn't know how to get it together as a head coach. But he's left Shane Beamer with some pieces to work with. I don't know what that means for a record, but when people say, well, they're just not talented, well, they might not be as deep as they want to be, but that's not true. There is talent on that roster.
And I think it's just ridiculous when people say, oh, Muschamp came in here and left this program in shambles. That's not the case at all.
This program's in better shape than it was when Spurrier left.
No question about it. And look, I think one of the things that South Carolina struggled with was being able to do things consistently from an offensive standpoint, but then obviously defense just being able to do the things that you expect, right? The tackling, the things that at the end of the day, how much more can you do from a coaching standpoint? Players need to execute, and that's not putting all the blame on the players because, it goes back to the head coach. It goes back to the coaching staff, no question about it. But I just thought it was funny when people were saying, oh, they got to do more tackling drills. Like, who the hell are you? Are you friggin' Bear Bryant? Are you at practice every day? Are you seeing these guys, what they do? I mean, you don't think they're practicing tackling? I mean, I know it's not the 1970s or 80s, and they don't tackle as much in the middle of the week during the regular season. But I mean, come on, like really, you don't think they're talking and preaching about tackling? I mean, that's so just things like that. But bottom line is this: they have guys in here right now that have the ability to be pretty special. And we've seen that in terms of what we talked about the defensive line, but some of these other positions as well. And I'm interested to see now with the different coaching staff, what Beamer and these guys can get out of these players. Can it be cranked up a notch? Will we be able to see them take it to that next level? Will we be able to see them make the plays consistently on the field, making the tackles, being able to do the proper run fits, the little things that this team struggled a lot with over the last 2 years?
And development.
Yeah.
Get the guys in. That's great. Can you develop them?
Look, we can't argue. I mean, there were position groups that Muschamp did not develop. Quarterback probably is one of those. But we can't argue that they didn't develop players. He's put a lot of players in the league over the last couple of years. They developed kids here, but
it wasn't consistent enough, and that's why he couldn't win.
Yeah, well, that's not the only reason, but yeah, there's part of it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there was. You got to be able to develop quarterbacks, guys. That's what it comes down to. I mean, we can all talk about Kevin Harris can run for 4,000 yards this year, but you got to have a quarterback to, especially in this league. And I tell you what, Mike, we'll have more of this conversation in the future. Next Friday is when Carolina will open camp. Still no official word from Steve Fink on the preseason schedule, but we should have that at some point in time this week. But it appears Friday, August the 5th is the date that the media will always be able to get out there. And
Thursday, August 5th is the day that they will report, and then the 6th, that Friday, will be the first day of practice.
Okay, there you go. That's
the only reason my birthday's on the 4th. That's the only reason I know that.
Well, so you'll be hungover. That's great.
No, I'm going. Guess what I'm doing? I'm petrified of heights. I'm going skydiving.
Oh, what? You're gonna love it. I'm telling you.
Nope.
Awesome. It doesn't even feel like you're falling.
That's what my buddy said. I said, "Do you have that roller coaster feeling?" They said, "No."
No. When the whole I need to get out of this plane and into the sky thing is a bit of a mind trick. But once that is cleared, the plane disappears in an instant, and there's no frame of reference. You're just like floating. It's awesome.
That does not sound awesome to me.
So if I'm not at practice the next day, you guys will know why.
You're dead.
Yeah.
Not gonna die. You're gonna
not to be crude, but I mean.
But I'd rather do this than bungee jumping, because bungee jumping, you're by yourself. At least if I fall and die, the other guy with me is gonna die too, because he's attached to me. So he's got a little something to live for.
That's true.
Jumping many times as well. Also fun, but I wouldn't do it again.
And I'm doing the whole videotape thing too, so I'll have to send it your way if we do make it back in one piece.
Golly, y'all got more. Y'all got of steel. I hiked a mountain 3 weeks ago, and my thought when I got to the top of the mountain was, is the mountain going to fall over? So
see, I can't. I'm petrified of doing the hikes. And you know why? And you'll laugh at me. This is a dumb friggin' city boy over here.
Think you'll get eaten by a bear?
Yeah. No, I mean, and then I keep thinking it's like, all right, brown bear is supposed to get big or black. I don't friggin' know. And I know what would happen. I would go out there and I'd do the complete opposite, and the beer would just beat the crap out of me. Yep.
Yeah.
I know. I'm not dumb. I mean, I call a spade here.
I don't know. I don't know that bears are. I don't think they like Yankees a whole lot. I think you'd be fine.
Dude,
I'm trying to make a team reference here, but I can't figure anything out.
No,
nothing. I got nothing.
I've talked to some folks, Yankees like me, down here in Charleston, who are straight up scared of alligators, like they think they're going to jump out of bushes now that they live in the South.
Yep, I'm one of those people. Yep,
yeah, my neighbors like that.
We were at a wedding with Spurrier Jr. was actually there, and there's a sign that says "Be careful of alligators." And I couldn't watch the outdoor wedding. This is a couple months ago. I'm just looking at that area, and I'm like, if an alligator comes, I am running to my car right now.
I take my kids to find the alligators in our neighborhood.
I'll find the grandmother of the bridesmaid. I'll give her an elbow, and that will give me plenty of time, and I will get my butt to the car. And sorry, Grandma, you had a good run.
What is this, American Pie?
I don't know. I mean, it wasn't my grandmother.
American Wedding?
If this person sees this, I'm going to get an angry call or text later today. It's just a joke.
So today we've been sexually explicit, and you've now pissed off Dick Harpootlian. Congratulations.
Seems like a beautiful day in South Carolina.
Dick Harpootlian just can't wait to put the cones up around 5 points. Yeah. All right. Well, Mike, we accomplished pretty much nothing today, but congratulations on 5 years at Watch Fox. Darren has put all your friends on the screen here with you in all shapes, sizes, and colors. Congratulations.
Yep, I'm the tallest one.
Yeah, that was by design. So, I tell you what, we'll have you back next week. Carolina set to start fall practice.
And you guys got to take a shot out of the new shot glass back there that we got. I don't know if you can see it. The Emmy did come in, so.
Perfect. I'm all in. I declined the invitation to play golf this week. So if you're playing,
yes, Thursday, I'm going to bring like 8 sleeves of balls. So
yeah,
and what I'm going to do is Mark Schlerf taught me an old trick. You bring green lifesavers, and we're not going to put this out there, and hopefully no one else will hear this. Green lifesavers, the hard kind, and you tee it up off the ball, because when you hit it, when you're on on the fairway, or for me, I'll probably be in the rough, the thing will just disintegrate and you'll get a nice little tee. So that's my secret going into Thursday.
Okay.
Now everyone knows if anyone's hearing this.
Never heard of such a thing, but I'll remember that next time I go play out at Steno Ferry.
Good luck with that.
Let me know how Shane plays this week. We got to figure out whether Shane can actually play or not.
I'm gonna keep an eye on that. I don't know if he's gonna do what Spurrier did. Spurrier would hop from group to group. I don't know if he's gonna do that this year, so we'll see.
I think he's going to insulate himself with a pretty good round. I don't think he wants to be in a losing.
So I won't
losing
see him.
group.
So I won't see him. I got you.
Yeah. Keep an eye on him. Have somebody out there keep an eye on him. I want to know what type of player he is. Is he
DC
better than
will be there. DC, I don't know if he golfs, so DC will probably keep an eye on him all day. Frank Martin said he'll be there. I don't know if Frank Martin's actually going to golf, but Frank said he'll be there.
It's gonna be a good time.
It will be a good time. I'm sad I can't make it. Maybe next year.
Yep.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, guys.
See ya. Mike Uva with Watch Fox. I don't even know what we just talked about, but that was fun. All right, so we're 10 minutes past due for a timeout. We got to get the national anthem in. I got to find a way to get some of my voice back. So let's hit this. We'll recover, have a short segment, and then we'll get to Gene Sapakoff. How much is the gap closing on Clemson, or is it closing on Clemson? Talk about that when we return on the JB and Goldwater show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
Bourbon and whiskey drinkers of Charleston, Paddock and Whiskey on James Island and the Terrace Shopping Center on Maybank is your home for the finest and rarest bourbon and whiskey drinks in the Low Country. This is where I hang out. Go meet my friends Reed and Chris and try one of their exclusive barrel pick bourbons. They have the largest private barrel collection in the state, and let their knowledgeable staff recommend your next pour. PaddockandWhiskey.com. Let not your heart be troubled. Paddock and Whiskey is here for your next double. We're all friends around here. Paddock and Whiskey, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Lowcountry. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Flamagore, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the national anthem.
JB Goldwater Show. Live, loud, and online.
All right. Final 48 minutes of our program on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, StokesVW.com. Make sure you follow us across social media platforms at JB and Goldwater, individually at Sports Media JB and at Darren Goldwater. And thanks, of course, to Mike Yuva in that last segment. Gene Sapakoff comes up at 1:30, so about 15 or so minutes away, and we'll get into a bunch of different items of discussion with Gene. In the Olympics, for those who maybe haven't been following along as closely, the United States now leads all countries with 25 total medals, 4 ahead of China and 7 ahead of Japan, who's in there with 18. The U.S. also with 9 gold medals on the during the games. So congratulations to all of them. Team USA did lose to Japan in the softball final, so they win the silver medal there. Dawn Staley and Asia Wilson leading Team USA in women's basketball over Nigeria in the.
So I would not be shocked one day.
Is that Mike?
If the national
It is. I'm going to try and get him out of here. There we go. He didn't mean to obviously jump in with us, but we heard him. Now we don't. Yeah. So I'm glad he didn't come on just like cussing us out or something.
Exactly. Yeah, bashing us. Dawn and Asia beat Nigeria 81-72. That is 50 straight wins for Team USA in the Olympics. So pretty impressive stuff there. Asia Wilson, a double-double. She was the star of the night. The former Gamecock with 19 points and 13 rebounds. They've got Japan coming up on Friday. The story of the day is Simone Biles pulling herself out of the team competition, which means that the Russians, let's just be honest with what they are.
What is it? It's the something committee?
Russian Olympic Committee.
That's right, yeah. I just went with ROC.
I know, right? We all know what it is.
Yeah.
They win gold. The U.S. wins silver. She has gotten some backlash and over this. I was actually looking at something just a little while ago, Darren, and she actually saved them some points by pulling out of the team competition, because had her scores counted, they probably would have landed with bronze. So by virtue of doing that,
continued, she didn't feel, and this is a mental thing for her, said she's not in the right mental space, and if she continues doing this and doesn't perform well, then those poor scores continue to negatively affect the team.
Yeah. So, that sucks. She's probably the greatest gymnast ever. I look at this and I can't help but think about what Carrie Strug did on one foot back in the 96 Olympics. Wasn't that 96?
Maybe. I mean, I remember it. I don't remember the exact year. It sounds about right.
I think it was 96. Yeah, that was something. But hopefully she's okay moving forward. They're going to continue to evaluate her, and we'll see what happens with Simone Biles. But I know a lot of folks were certainly looking forward to seeing her. Mm-hmm. The story of last night was the young lady from Alaska, Lydia Jacoby. If you haven't heard about this, the third youngest swimmer ever to win gold for Team USA. It was an upset in the 100-meter breaststroke, and she upset her teammate Lily King, who has been the queen of breaststroke globally. And last night, everybody expecting Lily King to kind of get back on top. And here this young lady was from Alaska pulling ahead to win gold. The images, if you haven't seen them, of her high school, the kids in her high school going crazy, her parents in Orlando at the U.S. Olympic watch party. I mean, it was really, really cool. It was really cool. Like, it was one of those moments where, as a parent now, Darren, if you can put yourself in those shoes of seeing your kid across the world all of a sudden win a gold medal, just something neat. So anybody that missed that, I would really encourage you to check that out. That was really, really cool. So a bunch more on the schedule today. I'm not going to sit here and go down the entire schedule, but I always look for swimming and stuff like that. And there's much more swimming coming up tonight, including the men's 200-meter butterfly final. That is a medal event at about 9:50 tonight. And so certainly looking forward to that. You've been watching the Olympics?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, plenty. More than I thought. And a lot of it on Peacock's coverage of it all. I mean, I think I pointed it out yesterday. There's something that's on at 11 every day. So I've caught like the beginning of it today and yesterday. But over the weekend, it was a lot of fun with Rich Eisen. And then there's another recap at night with Kenny Mayne. And it's old school, dry humor, Sports Center-like. And it's a good way to just keep up with what's happening, because you don't probably care that much about archery and about shooting and about guys in canoes and kayaks and whatnot, but they get you caught up. And what you're talking about with the reaction from family and the reaction from the athletes, I mean, God, that's what the Olympics are about. I mean, it's about pride and it's about country, but that's what it's about. I mean, it's the reaction. It's this lifelong dream, however short their lives are at this point, of accomplishing being the best in the world at whatever they're trying to do. And to accomplish that, I can't even imagine what that feels like. It's American or not. I mean, the guy from Tunisia who barely qualified for the final, and then he won, I believe it was the 400 meter.
Was it freestyle? Was it freestyle?
Yeah, it was freestyle. Either way, like that's cool too. Because a guy who's barely gotten in from Tunisia and then somehow finding a way to a gold. I mean, that's to me what the Olympics are about.
Yeah, that was a really neat moment for Tunisia. Yesterday I saw the first ever gold medal for Bermuda. A lady who she was a triathlete. I think it was the triathlon. And she was like a minute and a half ahead of the field. It was amazing. Yeah. Triathletes, I don't know how they do it. But anyways, the Olympics continue, and you can check that out on your local listings, of course. All right, to Clemson we go. The All-ACC preseason teams are out, and Clemson does lead the league with 8 selections. Just 2 of them, though, on the first team on offense, Justin Ross, of course, we know his story, coming off of injury at wide receiver, and then Jordan McFadden at tackle has made the first team. And then on the defensive side of the football, they got 6 guys, 2 up front, Brian Brzee and Miles Murphy, and 3 up front, and Tyler Davis, and then James Skalski at linebacker, and then on the back end of that, you got Andrew Booth and Nolan Turner there at safety. Tigers defense is going to be really, 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 really special this year. They're going to be really good. Georgia's they're going to get punched in the face week 1. We'll see how they respond. But Clemson, you know what's interesting about that list real quick, just offhand? Xavier Thomas has been there for 4 years. He was like the dude, and he's not sniffing it. And he's had his problems, and I think he's had more problems than they've alluded to over the last year. But he's almost an afterthought as it pertains to the elite players at his position in the league.
And that's how much better he will make Clemson if he performs at the level that he expects. Word out of Clemson. If they're confident, though, that's what it seems, that they're confident that he will be back at that level. He's portraying that confidence, certainly, that he'll be back at that level. But getting left off lists makes sense because people don't know what to think of him. I mean, you don't know. He wasn't around last year. You just don't know. But if he is what he could be, that just adds to an already absurd defense.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they're still fairly young, but obviously incredibly talented. And then, of course, the preseason poll, you've all seen it by now, 147 total votes. And Clemson with 125 to win the league. North Carolina was 16. Miami got 3, and then Virginia, Georgia Tech, and NC State got 1. What caught my attention, though, is Clemson received 1,028 votes to win the Atlantic.
Mm-hmm.
And NC State received, by virtue of points, obviously, 804. There's North Carolina with 979, Miami 881. Remember, this is a point system here.
Yeah.
So the question that people are starting to ask is the gap closing on Clemson? And if it is, why? Is it because Clemson's not as good? Is it because North Carolina is much better? Because Miami is much better? I would think, I'll say this. I think that the gap has gotten smaller. I wouldn't say that the gap is closing at all. And we could all be proven very wrong week 1 with Clemson. The thing that gives you a little pause is, okay, if God forbid something happened to DJ Uiagalelei, is Clemson still Clemson? Probably not, but could they be? We don't have those answers. I look more to the other teams because Clemson is one of the most talented teams in the country. There's no question about that. Are they as deep as they've been over the years? I don't know. I think that they probably are pretty close. They'll probably play their way into being that deep again. They just have a lot of guys we just haven't seen as much of. But like the one thing that cannot happen, the gap, Darren, can't close unless other teams get better. If you're just counting on them getting worse, boy, are you in for a rude awakening. So how much better is North Carolina? I don't know that they're that much better than they were last year. Sam Howell is really, really good, but they also lost some dudes. And how much better is Miami? I think Miami's better, but this is just another year of, well, they might be, but 9-3 still isn't going to get it done in this league. Who's the team that's going to go 11-1? And there isn't one of those teams.
No. So is it closing? Maybe, right? Is it closed? No, it's not. It's not even close. And even if North Carolina and Miami do improve, they're still not knocking on Clemson's door unless Clemson comes down to them. Part of it for me, there's just a sour taste in my mouth because of the last time we saw Clemson just overmatched. So in my head, it's all right. They're probably going to be significantly better than I expect them to be, which is one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the country anyway. But they're probably better than that. There's probably a chip on their shoulder when there doesn't necessarily have to be one. So if anyone's really going to close that gap, you got to come up and catch them. That's not happening right now. It's not an immediate type thing. I mean, Clemson has separated the gap so wide. With what's happening with realignment, that's what can help speed things up. Not necessarily just be one team, one coach recruiting, building a team, catching Clemson, but the changing landscape can put more roadblocks in Clemson's way, like a tougher conference, right? If the ACC expands, if they merge, who they add, if Clemson goes anywhere, those are the type of things that can start closing this gap around Clemson.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, if you are a fan of pretty much anybody in the SEC that contends, or South Carolina, of course, because that's your rival, but if you're one of the programs in the SEC that is annually in contention to be in the playoff, Bama, throw in LSU, throw in Georgia, throw in Florida, and right now throw in A&M, and that's probably where we stop that conversation at this point in time. But if you're one of those 5 teams and you're adding Oklahoma and Texas, you're looking at the ACC going, this is ridiculous, because like this year's schedule outside of Georgia, there ain't a roadblock on that schedule for Clemson. Like there isn't. Like if you South Carolina State, Georgia Tech, at NC State, Boston College, Syracuse, at Pittsburgh, Florida State, Louisville. We've had this conversation. UConn, Wake, at South Carolina. They shouldn't lose any of those games. They should. I'm not going to say that they shouldn't, or that they should lose or shouldn't lose the Georgia game. Those 2 teams will just have to battle it out, and we'll just kind of see, right? But like those aren't roadblocks. And then you got these SEC programs going, my God, you're going to add Oklahoma and Texas to this for us, and who are they adding?
Well, there will be. So if there's any SEC fan out there, if that's the mindset, just shove it to the back, because when this is all said and done, there will be more movement. The ACC can't. Well, the ACC can't stand pat here.
But who?
And if they do, Clemson can't stand pat. There will be more movement. There will be more roadblocks. It's just a matter of what happens and how this whole thing shakes out. But don't just sit there and think there's going to be this major super conference, and then here's the ACC. They're going to have a seat at the table too, when there's probably going to be another massive super conference. All of those things can't coexist.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the question is the question that we've been talking about the last few days. Who is it? I mean, what programs out there on that caliber that could be joining the ACC that would strengthen the league? You know what I mean? We just don't know.
There are certainly, I mean, to strengthen the league, you need to come in stronger than North Carolina and Miami. That's
right.
Right? So you can come in anywhere in that gap. You don't need to be knocking on Clemson's door, because let's be honest, not many people are. Not many people are knocking on Alabama's door either. The gap isn't that tight in the SEC either. So just to improve the ACC, bring in teams that are somewhere between the North Carolina and the Clemson level. Are there options? Absolutely. There's a ton of options. You just don't know how it's going to shake out. Notre Dame is absolutely one of those options. If there's any type of merger out there, that's an option. West Virginia is an attractive football team that would enhance the profile of the ACC. If that happens, there are plenty of things that are out there. Clemson's road will not get easier. It will get harder, the same way any other team that's included in this next realm of football, their road is harder too.
It should be harder if they realign, but it won't be as difficult as what some of these teams are going to have to go through in the SEC. Like if you draw Oklahoma and Texas in the same year, along with whatever else you have there, I don't know of anybody in the country that will be able to claim my schedule is more difficult than yours.
Well, that's the same discussion that's going on anyway, right? The SEC is the best league. The Big Ten is behind them. Now the SEC with this edition takes another step forward past, wherever they have been. They widen that gap a little bit. But even still, it doesn't make it that much more challenging, because you still only have X amount of games. Let's
Yeah,
say
you're still only playing 9 games. That's right.
Right.
And it's going to rotate.
Or 12 total, right? Who knows how many conference games you're playing and how many total games there's going to be before the playoffs. So you
don't know who's going to be good and bad in those years.
Right. It's all cyclical. Yeah. So while it's true, this superpower league right here, it's going to be tough to create a league that matches it in depth. On any given year, another league can still be better than it, depending on how it's put together. I go back to this Big Ten, Pac-12 thing. If you have a league with Michigan, with Ohio State, with Penn State, with UCLA, if they can bounce back, with Southern Cal, with Oregon, that's a damn hard league. So it just depends on who's up and who's down and what your schedule looks like.
I mean, you could almost make an argument now to be fair to this conversation that let's say we found out tomorrow that, this is strictly from a football standpoint here, but you could almost make an argument if we found out tomorrow that West Virginia, Darren, and I'm trying to think of somebody that would fit the mold regionally, but I can't. But let's just say West Virginia and Iowa State, for the sake of conversation, we're going to join the ACC, and Oklahoma and Texas, we're joining the SEC. The SEC, hands down, wins that argument based on brand alone.
Yeah.
But if you average those two programs as to what is strengthening the league more, there is an argument that the ACC could be saying we're actually getting currently the two better, on average, between those two programs, a better product on the field because Texas isn't the Texas that they used to be. Will they be again? I'm sure they will be at some point, but right now they're not. We know what Oklahoma is. And look where Iowa State has gotten, and you could argue that West Virginia is right there on playing with Texas, if not maybe even a little bit of a better program right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you can make that argument that
all cyclical, like you said.
It's all cyclical. And because the ACC needs more strengthening, if something like that were to happen, they can easily sit there and say, well, we did more to strengthen our brand than you did to strengthen yours purely on the field.
Yeah. I think West Virginia, I think the ACC they need West Virginia.
They need something, because if they don't do something, if I'm Clemson, I'm jumping.
Yeah, I don't see it. I don't think they do. Why would you?
You have to.
You got a straight path every year.
No, because if they don't do anything, whatever breaks apart, there's going to be a group of them that are better than the rest. Clemson will be part of that group that's better than the rest. If you just sit home and do nothing, you're left behind. If the ACC says, we're good, Clemson has to go. If they don't go, they're making a big mistake.
Yeah, I don't think they do it though. There's not a fiber in my body that sees Clemson leaving the ACC, especially alone, to go. Where are they going? They're not going to the SEC. So where are they going? This report that's out there about them joining the SEC. Give me a break.
On the SEC, I ask. Absolutely. I ask Ohio State. I ask Michigan. I ask Notre Dame. I ask everybody. And then you see where the chips fall.
We'll see what Gene Sapakoff says. 1:33 on a Tuesday afternoon. He joins us next on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.
Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road with exciting news. It's springtime and we're playing ball. Most dealerships don't have any inventory, but at Stokes Volkswagen we do. So we're playing ball on every new Volkswagen in stock. Every new Volkswagen available with zero down. Qualified buyers can sign and drive with interest-free financing for 60 months. Remember, Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road is the fastest, easiest way to sell your car and get the most money for your trade. Plus, we'll take any trade in any condition, paid off or not. Is your credit in a slump?
Strike two.
If you've got $500 down and you make at least $2,000 per month, our lenders can get you approved. So if you want to strike out, that's okay. But if you want to hit a home run and save on a new Volkswagen, come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road or StokesVW.com.
$1,666 per month per $1,000 borrowed for 60 months at 0% APR with zero down. Plus tax tag. Includes $499.50 administration fee. Subject to VCI credit approval. Expires month end.
Peace and love at Stokes Speed Dub.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
Shrimping season's back. That means local caught shrimp. That's right, local caught shrimp back on the menu at the Dog and Duck. All 3 locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road, now featuring once again local caught hand-breaded shrimp, plus other daily specials like the Game Day Burger every Wednesday, Rib Night on Friday, rotating taps all the time, and all the TVs you can possibly imagine for whatever you want to watch. The Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road. Okay, what's going on today, huh? Anything to talk about?
All right, greetings and a good Monday afternoon. Greetings and a good Tuesday afternoon. Greetings and a good Wednesday afternoon, and welcome aboard. All right, greetings and a good Thursday afternoon. Greetings and a good Friday afternoon, and welcome aboard.
All right, final 25 minutes on this Tuesday afternoon. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. JB, Darren, and Gene Sapakoff, 7-time Sports Writer of the Year. Should be 17-time Sports Writer of the Year in the state of South Carolina, joining us now. Hey, Gene.
How's it going? I've just been sitting here breaking down the last 2 Texas-Iowa State football games from 2019 and 2020 and wondering why the SEC didn't go after the Cyclones.
Is that your next column?
Because the Big Ten's taking them to strengthen their league.
Yeah. Well, they've gotten a good program in Oklahoma and a somewhat aspiring program in Texas.
So Gene, there's a lot of angles to get to this on. We're going to try to cover as many as we can with you, and I certainly want to ask you about your column in the Post and Courier about the Gamecocks. I know you've gotten feedback. on that. So we'll get there in just a little bit. But all right, let me go back to what Darren and I were just talking about. Darren says, Darren, I'll let you say it. You said it. You say it to Gene what we were just discussing from your standpoint.
So the thought, you're referencing Clemson here, right? What we were just talking about there.
Right.
So if the ACC does nothing, which I don't think anyone expects, but okay, let's play the game. If the ACC does nothing, if I'm Clemson, I jump ship. And if I'm Clemson, I go to the SEC unless there's a Big Ten, Pac-12, some other type conglomerate thing out there that makes sense to jump to in order to stay competitive. I think it boils down, if you're Clemson, do you stand pat or do you go? And is there a solid answer to that question right now?
The conundrum, the dilemma is wound up in one William Christopher Dabo Sweeney. Any other time of the Clemson sort of athletic department era, I like your thinking there. Presently, however, under Coach Sweeney, they are in a streak of 6 straight college football playoff appearances with, in theory, a few more on the way. Some people would say a lot more on the way. I don't know. I think you realistically just have to look at what the roster is now and project maybe a few more, and there's a 12-team playoff coming. In the SEC, I'll tell you what, you look at Clemson's record over those last 6 years, nail-biter victory over Auburn in Auburn, nail-biter victory over Auburn in Clemson. They've had some close calls in some SEC games. And I just don't know if in the SEC, Clemson is the Clemson that we know now. Now, that's with Dabo Sweeney. Without him, I think that might be an easier call.
As it pertains to the SEC now, Gene, are they done? Are these 2, Oklahoma and Texas, is that it? Or are they in search of more?
That's also a tremendous question, and the answer has to be not necessarily. I mean, what if, in the Darren Goldwater example, Florida State and Clemson came knocking at the door, or I saw an interesting thing yesterday about, the SEC is so much about rivalries, and there's so many cool rivalries there, and they just got a built-in Oklahoma-Texas rivalry. Why not go after UNC and Duke? Something like that. I mean, that gets you into a different state. It isn't a great football move, but what if something like that happened? Yeah, so I think the answer is on that, not necessarily. And again, to go back to Clemson struggled with SEC foes. The year in 2018, this is the year they won the national championship, undefeated with Trevor Lawrence took over for Kelly Bryant, and they smacked Alabama around. They lost. They won a game in week 2 at Texas A&M 28-26. Now, that's playing a tough Aggies team in College Station, but you just don't get that week in, week out punishment in the ACC that you would get in the SEC if Clemson were to make the jump. But to your question, Jamie, I don't know if Greg Sankey gets Florida State and Clemson reps knocking at the door, or UNC and Duke reps, or heck, Notre Dame and Penn State reps. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it's all. This has kind of been my talking point, at least. It's all about protecting your interests. I don't know how many times I can say this, and everybody's interests are a little bit different. We'll transition that part of the conversation into the Big 12 in just a moment. But if you're the SEC, we've already heard a statement that was provided to your colleague Andy Shane from Dr. Pastides up in Columbia about the addition of these programs and things like that. And basically what he was saying was the SEC doesn't need them, but it's certainly something that we're going to evaluate. Well, you might not need them now, but if they were going to go to the ACC, you'd be looking back going, yeah, we probably could use them today if they go strengthen that league. So you got to protect your interests, Gene. And then at some point, though, you have to wonder, is protecting your interest, can you cross the line of being greedy, or are you you see what I'm saying here? Like, there's a fine line in having this mentality of too big to fail and all these type things, because I think that could happen. You could be very, very big and you could have all the brands, and then you eat your own every year and you create a little bit of an issue down the road.
Yeah, I mean, it's apples and pomegranates to compare college football to NASCAR, but they went to the big tracks and away from a lot of the smaller ones, and interest plummeted. Now, there were a lot of other factors involved, including the, proliferation of cell phone and things like that, and a lot of distractions. And most ratings in just about every sport but the NFL have slightly dipped because of things like that. But still, I don't know if this is such a great move for a football fan, the average football fan at, say, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Tennessee, Kentucky. I mean, bringing in Texas and Oklahoma just sentenced you to a bunch of 5 and 7 seasons if you're those schools.
Well, that's where I was going next. The column that you have in the Post and Courier, Gamecock fans, this probably isn't anything new to you. A fan base in this state taking exception with something that you've written. But is that your prediction that the future for South Carolina football in the SEC, with the addition of these two schools and maybe more, who knows, will keep them in the lower end of the middle class of the league?
Not just keep them in, Jeremy. I mean, Jamie.
It's okay. I get it.
I'm looking at a roster here of Oklahoma, and there's Jeremy on there. I'm sorry, but not just keep them in there, Jamie. But I think it's just going to enhance the mediocrity. There's no way around it. There might be conventional divisions, of which geographic logic has Alabama and Auburn coming over to the east, or maybe 4-team pods. I've seen that possibility. But in just about any example, the goal for South Carolina, sitting down and talking to Shane Beamer, I did it, you've been doing it. The goal isn't just to be okay. They kind of want to get to the SEC championship game or be at least a contender for that. That's more and more unlikely as you add better and better football programs that have greater and greater traditions. That's no secret. So my point is just that if you're a bean counter, a school official, the president, the athletic director, and you're sitting in that echo chamber in Columbia and talking about this, and the cha-ching cash register is going off with every bit of data that is put forth. What if they let a fan in there saying, we're going to lose more games. I'd really rather win more games, and pointing out that Clemson's doing pretty good in the ACC, winning games. You can say what you want about the league. We could be, a Clemson in the ACC. That's at least worth talking about if you're in the boardroom in Columbia, I think.
That is very interesting stance. I mean, I personally don't ever see anything like that coming to fruition. Let me translate it this way, and let's be clear here. We are talking about the Gamecocks because you cover them in the state of South Carolina, but you also earlier in the conversation referenced many other programs in this league that are in the same ballpark as South Carolina: Kentucky, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Missouri, Tennessee. Tennessee fans like that. Yeah, well, yeah. Let me go to something that you referenced about Clemson, though, just a minute ago. If Clemson was a member of the SEC, maybe some predict out there that their continued success wouldn't look exactly like it has. The 11-1s, the 12-0s consistently. You might be able to sprinkle a couple of more losses in there from time to time. Not to offend any Clemson fans, just a thought. What about Oklahoma? I mean, Texas, it's a brand. They have great tradition, but Gene, they haven't been anything to write home about in college football over the last few years. Do you anticipate this helping or hurting Texas with their recent struggles and a new head coach in Steve Sarkisian? And do you anticipate this move helping or hurting Oklahoma, who has been a regular contributor to the college football playoff?
It's going to hurt both of them in different ways. I mean, like you said, Oklahoma's been kind of one of the elites lately with the current program, and I expect them to recruit better, get a lot more players now out of Atlanta and Florida and so forth. But yeah, I don't think they're going to have the playoff percentage qualification success that they have, at least relative to a 4-team format. But with the 12-team format coming in, I think they think we're going to be solidly in the mix, and that don't even slightly, ignore or belittle the fact that 12-team playoff is really a part of this, because I think it really eases concern in places like Georgia, Florida, Auburn, LSU about this acquisition of Texas and Oklahoma. I don't want to hurt too many feelings out there, but that's just not really on the hot burner for places like South Carolina, Kentucky, Mississippi State, and Ole Miss. But I bet you that was a huge factor in winning over these other schools, and that therefore the body of the SEC to bring in Texas and Oklahoma. And yeah, as far as Clemson goes, no way if they're in the SEC they've got anything near the kind of 6 straight playoffs. I'd say the over-under is about 2.5 making the playoffs, and they might have a national championship in there somewhere. I'll give them that. But again, I just illustrated the close calls twice against Auburn, once against Texas A&M. I mean, you're going to have you would have had a lot more games like that in the SEC.
Gene Sapakoff, Post and Courier. Gene, how soon does this happen, the move for Oklahoma and Texas?
That's a real good question. And from all the experts that I've read, not this next year, maybe not 2022. I'd be stunned if Texas and Oklahoma are playing in the Big 12 in 2023. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're in the SEC in 2022, but either 2022 or 2023, it's just too ugly of a situation it would be for them in the Big 12 and for the SEC. People, schedulers and the conference office, they can't wait to get them in there. And it's going to be fascinating to see how they do those schedules and divisions, if they do have divisions, but what the schedule format's going to be in football.
What do you think the next move will be outside the SEC? Is it the Big Ten? Is it the Pac-12? Is it the American? What's the next move?
Was it James Carvell, famous, Clinton architect of the campaign. It's the economy, stupid. It's Notre Dame. It's Notre Dame, Notre Dame, Notre Dame. And I think that's, where they go will dictate what the Big Ten and the ACC want to do, I think. And of course, where they go might be nowhere, but I think then the chess pieces start really falling into place.
Is it realistic to think at all, Gene, that the Big 12 can recover from this? Can they rebrand themselves as a league?
I don't see it, because I think that their best moves for acquisitions are like BYU and bringing back Nebraska, which left because it was mad at Texas and doesn't seem to really like being in the Big Ten. They've had numerous feuds already. So BYU and Nebraska, wow. I mean, that's what you're replacing Texas and Oklahoma with. That's a step back. I think their play has to be some sort of merger with the Pac-12. And even at that, it would be probably like the three teams from Texas and Oklahoma State going, and West Virginia, the two Kansas schools, and Iowa State going to the Big Ten or ACC or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how it works out, but it seems like there's only three directions this thing can go, right, Gene? You either merge your league, you dissolve, or you rebuild. And I mean, I could see a merger, but as you just mentioned, I don't know that. Like, if the Big 12 and the Pac-12 decide that that's what they want to do, that's great. But West Virginia is not going to be a part of that merge. That would just be dumb. And so then that leaves West Virginia. I've always personally thought West Virginia is better suited for the SEC. So if the Big 12 says, hey, let's go ahead and merge with somebody, whether it's the Pac-12 or whatever, does West Virginia, is there a fight for West Virginia? Does the ACC say, well, we really want you, and here's why? Their natural rivals are in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Or does the SEC say, you know what? Here's our opportunity to go get the Mountaineers, and let's also go get blank, and then that'll make ourselves an 18-team league?
Another fascinating question. First of all, is there going to be like some sort of gentleman's agreement that we're going to have 4 16-team conferences eventually? If not, then yeah, the SEC might want to consider West Virginia. But West Virginia is in a delicate spot because, what if the SEC says, now we're good with our 16 after Texas and Oklahoma, and the ACC says, we're going to go really hard after Central Florida, try to get Maryland back, maybe, Notre Dame, Penn State. And remember, they already have 14 members. So there's just not that many spots, in that available there. And maybe they somehow end up in the Big Ten. I don't know.
You just mentioned Central Florida in the ACC, right? Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, I've always thought that was a place that really needs exploring. As you know, I think there's over 50,000 students there.
Yep.
It's a good school. It's growing. Obviously, the location. There's some complications there, not the least of which is that Florida State probably does not want that. I don't know. Maybe they do. I mean, it'd be a lot less expensive for their, Olympic sports travel and things like that. But I think that's a possibility. And I went to the ACC thing last week for a couple of days, and that was after the Texas-Oklahoma story broke. And people in the ACC were saying, what about Penn State, Maryland? It made a big mistake going to the Big Ten. Maybe they want back in. I don't know. Notre Dame's obviously the plum, and then somebody else. And almost anybody else would work if you get Notre Dame.
Does Penn State make sense in the ACC? You've said it a couple times. A couple people have floated it out there. As a grad, I have my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I'd want to know from you and, your sources and stuff, but are they good with, the Big Ten, or are they kind of ticked off at them, or what? I mean, I think you also have to go with like present administrations and things as a tail wagging the dog of years and years of history. I just don't know. I've heard that mentioned. They'd love to pair them in rivalry with Pitt. I'm not sure Penn State necessarily would love that.
They don't care. The fans don't care. I can tell you that.
Yeah, they think themselves as so far above Pittsburgh. But I mean, there could be some pluses there, especially if they came in with Notre Dame. I mean, that's got to be somewhat attractive.
You know, I think one of the things, this is all fascinating, but you talk about Penn State, you mentioned Central Florida, and I'm interested to see not necessarily which P5 teams move around. I mean, I am, but in addition to that, which group, because the group of 5, Gene, is getting squeezed out. We all know this is coming. We see it. So who's knocking on the door? Like, who's on the doorstep, right? Of, hey, pick me. We'd like to be involved. Here's why. I mean, you've got Houston, you got Cincinnati, you've got Central Florida. I bet Boise State would like to have something to say about this. And I know, and I agree with you earlier about, you know, with what you're saying, BYU. If you added BYU to the Big 12 to try to rebrand things, that's probably a step down. There's truth in that. That is true, but we also need to recognize BYU and you know, how many conference championships did they win in the WAC? They've won national championships. They used to be part of the Mountain West Conference, and they won championships out there with Bronco Mendenhall as their coach. It's not that long ago. I mean, that's a program that would be valuable to somebody. Would the Pac-12 maybe try to merge the Big 12 and then bring BYU in with them? I mean, I guess what I'm getting at here is this has started a total shakeup, and more than likely in 3 or 4 years, we'll look back 3 or 4 years, Gene, and you will not recognize point A to point B.
Oh, you're so right. And I think, you know, there's been rumblings about this for several years. I mean, I'm talking like 8 or 9 years ago, just at a Citadel basketball game once, a former athletic director pulled me aside and said, you know, games like this, I don't know how much longer we're going to even have crowds like this, because eventually what's going to happen is up top, there's going to be 4 16-team conferences. I mean, so people have been talking about this for a long time. As far as who's the most attractive group of 5 school, I think there's no doubt about it that, and I can't believe the SEC and ACC aren't really having a battle right now for Coastal Carolina. I mean, you've seen what Jamie Chadwell's team has done. They've won a national championship in baseball. They've got Cliff Ellis coaching basketball. Wouldn't that fit nicely into a Texas, Oklahoma, Coastal Carolina grab for the SEC? My cheek, by the way.
Coastal next to the SEC. Breaking.
I was about to say, you're going to really toss that carrot out with 2 minutes left in our program, Gene? Come on, man. Oh, boy.
Well, no, if it was me, if I was the ACC, I'm thinking App State and Coastal. That's what I'm thinking.
App State. What about East Carolina? You think the North Carolina boys want any part of them?
None whatsoever. And I feel bad for programs like that. But on the other hand, in the new world, guys, Jamie or Jeremy or Jamie, I think in the new world, though, a group of 5 national championship could be really fun. You know, no more kidding around about trying to get into the 12-team playoff. You guys have your own, and we have some really cool, you know, BYU, UCF, Coastal, Cincinnati, you know, semifinal type things. That would be fun.
It's headed that way. I mean, it's these programs we've mentioned, they're knocking on the door, but you know, Gene, we all know dang well that the Miami of Ohio's are not. The Temples, the Tulanes respect their programs tremendously, but they're going to be just left out in the cold with this. And their bowl games, when this playoff expands, a lot of those bottom tier bowl games are going bye-bye. Like they're going away. So they're going to be, they can go 10-2 and they're not going to probably have anywhere to play because of it at the end of the season. So you're going to have a playoff.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. That's a whole nother topic. I think you still do have television slots to fill, and sometimes minor bowls do really well with that on December 22nd and on a Thursday when it's cold out. But hey, you said it best. We're going to look back on this in 3 or 4 years, and it's going to be as monumental of a seismic shift in college athletics as we've seen. And of course, just these last couple years with all the changes, it's just your head is spinning. It's amazing.
Who thought NIL? We all thought NIL was the tip of the iceberg.
We're not even talking NIL anymore, man.
Gosh,
what's that? That's like 2019 stuff.
We've forgotten that DJ Uiagalelei is eating 6 Bojangles sandwiches a day now. That's part of his new deal.
Right.
All right, Gene, real quick, what you got in the paper coming up?
Okay, well, first of all, we've got great stuff from David Cloninger covering the Gamecocks and his fantastic new newsletter, and I will have a really cool column on Melissa McCants Azevedo. She's worked for the River Dogs for 32 years, and she was 14 years old. Husband, Tyson, head baseball coach at West Ashley. Melissa has been going through a difficult, brutal 2-year cancer battle. And I'm kind of outlining that in the Sunday paper, and just how the Charleston baseball community, I mean high school, college, pro, has all just come together and rallied around Melissa.
One of the first people I met when I moved here for a job with the River Dogs. I've known her for almost 20 years. She's awesome. So I'm looking forward to that.
Absolutely. And Tyson's a wonderful man himself. It's a great family. I'm glad you're doing that, Gene. Really look forward to reading that. We want to remind people as well, head to postandcourier.com. Speaking of the River Dogs, you can go vote for the Charleston Baseball Hall of Fame. This year's inductions are on the ballot, including Ralph Civiteri. Gene, thanks, brother. Next week, guess what? Football camp starts. We can actually talk about, like players and position groups and the fun stuff that we really need to talk about right now. We're missing all the good stuff. Looking forward to it.
That will be so great.
Thanks, Gene. Gene Sapakoff with the Post.
Thanks, guys.
Yes, sir, with the Post and Courier. It's National Scotch Day. If I didn't feel so awful, I probably wouldn't drink it anyways. I don't care for Scotch. But maybe somebody else does.
You're a big bourbon guy. It's not too far off.
Yeah, it's far off for me.
Clearly.
It's also National Creme Brulee Day. I like creme brulee. It's National New Jersey Day, too. Congrats to all.
Better than it's given credit for.
Congrats to the Jersey Shore. All right, we got to get out of here. Thanks to Gene and Mike Yuva. Thanks to Darren. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Vote for Ralph Civiteri, Charleston Baseball Hall of Fame. We're back tomorrow with Gene. With I don't know who do we have tomorrow?
JC
sure. Yeah,
Allset.
Yep, Keith Allset. Oh, tomorrow's gonna be fun. Can't wait. See you then on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.